Real talk for real minds. You're listening to Candid Minds with Dr. T and friends. Welcome back to another episode of Candid Minds with Dr. T and friends. I'm here today with an incredible individual, the world-renowned Leah Forster, who you all know as a comedian and an influencer and a businesswoman. And I originally read your bio and was like, you've done a lot, and you have such an incredible story that I am truly privileged to have you on the show today and have the opportunity to speak with you. I'll tell you guys, I originally wanted to interview Leah like 2-3 years ago, and it didn't work out. And it was Bashir that our paths kept crossing over and over again, unintentionally, until we realized that must be a sign and we must have this conversation. So it's been quite a long time in the making, and I'm honored that you're sharing your story with me today, and you've agreed to do this. It's actually a split to have you on the program, so I appreciate that. And yeah, it is great to have you, and would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit and share with our listeners who you are and why you chose to come today to be with me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for tuning in. I'm super excited, and I'm incredibly nervous because I made a decision that I was going to do this podcast for a very particular reason. And now that I'm here, the moment is here. I'm really ready. I've been asked a lot of personal questions, and I'm really ready to answer all the questions, to give full and complete truths, no matter where it goes. And in return, I want, at the end of all of it, where you know Leah, the Instagram person, Leah, the mother who just finished 12 rounds of chemotherapy with her child, Leah who created scandal and was on the cover of the Daily News, Leah that escaped a really difficult community and mindset, the Leah who experienced sexual trauma, the Leah who experienced physical trauma, the Leah who reconnected to God, little Leah. Everyone's here. And at the end of it, I would like you to give me your professional opinion. And if I need a diagnosis, I invite you to give me one.
I could tell you off the top of my head, it's hard to do that in one sitting. I commend you for having the courage to be so forthcoming. That's not easy, and certainly not in front of an audience. When we work with individuals that have experienced as much as you have, it's important to tread very lightly. Even if we know it feels right and we're ready, and it's like it's just like right here about to come out. My job is also to protect you and try to hold your hand as much as possible and navigate that with you. And at the end of the day, as much as I love our viewers and our listeners and want to do right by them, most importantly, I want to do right by you and never exploit you or expose something that you don't feel comfortable sharing. And I feel like this is a disclaimer, and that's not what I'm trying to do.
I just want to point out that before the cameras were rolling, we had this very conversation. Yeah. And Dr. T was very specific, and he said, I would never exploit a patient like that. He's been asked to do it, and he wouldn't do it. It goes against who he is as a person. And then Dr. T was trying to schmooze with me, and I said, let's wait till we're on camera, because I'm going to challenge you. And I don't think you understood what I meant by that. Yeah. So I'm not expecting you to publicly diagnose me. And also, like I said, it's only been an hour. But I do invite you to share your professional
No,
opinions.
I will.
Whether it's modalities or whether I have it wrong, or, whether I need to look at it from a different lens.
Yeah.
You're a psychiatrist and, you have 7 locations and
10, but
10.
we're not counting. We're not counting.
Wow. Kanai nahara poo poo poo.
Yeah.
So I trust you. I respect you. Let's go.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Not everyone here knows you. I'm sure many do. All of them do. And a big part of your journey is where it all began, growing up in a Hasidic Jewish home. But I think it'd be helpful to set the stage as what is Hasidism? What is it like growing up in a Hasidic home? What does that even mean? And where does your journey start?
So the comedian in me is listening to you talk and you're saying Hasidism, and I'm like, it's not Hasidism, it's Hasidism. Little Leah grew up in Borough Park, was actually born in Williamsburg, in the very Hasidic sect of Williamsburg. Moved to Borough Park when I was a young girl, and I went to a Beis Yaakov school. So to many in my own community, we were actually less strict than other sects, because I had many Hasidic cousins who were in very Hasidic schools, and I went to Beis Yaakov, so I did get a mixed education. So we were considered middle of the road. My father did wear a shtramel. He spoke a flassige Yiddish, and I'm very grateful for that, because I speak a fluent Yiddish, and I speak Hebrew, and I speak English, and I understand Russian and Spanish and French. And I think it all came from just being multilingual, So I get it wrong sometimes. Maybe it's not lingual, and maybe it's lingual. But, we read on Shabbos. So to clarify, from sunup to sundown, if you are religious, sundown to sunup, you're keeping Shabbat. And when I was growing up, everyone around me kept Shabbat. So we read a lot of books, and even our newspapers were chock full of information. So we grew up knowing things. We just knew our things. So that was my upbringing. From a young age, we were raised that as soon as you turn 18, you must get married. Ben 18 lechippah, ben 18 lachuppah, if you're modern. But either way, we were told that our role in life and our mission in life is to support your husband. And it's interesting, because now that I am religious, I understand that mission. Because a husband's mission is also to support his wife. Mm-hmm. Or any partnership, everyone should be supporting one another. So now I have a clear understanding of all that. But little Leah grew up super sheltered, no TV, no internet, no movies, no secular books. Secular books, a little bit Anne of Green Gables, those kind of secular books. If you were super modern, you read Babysitter's Club. My mom did sneak me here and there to a Broadway show. So I did have that little Broadway girl in me. And she got to live this year. I did a 10-day sold out off-Broadway show called That's Yentertainment, where I took all of the songs that I had wrote, composed, created in my previous life as a religious housewife. And I was a very famous entertainer in a religious community. Every religious woman all over the world knew who I was. They all had my DVDs because they didn't have internet. So they actually had to go to the stores and purchase actual DVDs. And they would come out to my shows. And then when things ended for me in that community, I had a deal with my record. I got a one-time payout and I sold everything to them. So I couldn't use any of my own music. And I had also nowhere to even use it because it all ended for me. And luckily, so many years later, I got to take my own music and put on my own show. And it was magical.
No, it's certainly incredible, the journey. Spoiler alert, I do want to just create some context for our listeners that now you're living a life having been married at 18, having a 20, okay, at 20, having a daughter, going through a divorce, and now you have a female partner, and you're living a authentic life that you weren't living for a very long time. So to those that aren't familiar with your story, I just wanted to share that for a second so they could appreciate how much you've been through. I usually don't like to go to the end in the beginning, but I just wanted people to realize that, because that gives so much more meaning to now the rest of the questions that I'm going to ask.
That's why you are the doctor.
So I want to just create that context that people are realize like what we're talking about here. And even your correction, regarding the child, is so much there to unpack too. So at 20, you're living this ultra orthodox Hasidic life. You're getting married. At that point, do you know that you're attracted to women?
I don't really know what that means. Leah, 18-year-old Leah, doesn't really know what that means. Attracted. Drawn, certainly. Feelings, yes. Attraction wasn't on the table. In my community, we don't have boyfriends either. We don't touch before marriage. The first time you kiss your husband is in the yichud room. And, it's the first time that you're ever physical. So I didn't really understand what that means. I knew that stuff was for married people, and in my community, I was raised that when you get married, you can do that. So driving, I was told when you get married, if your husband lets you drive, you could drive. You want to wear nail polish? When you get married, if your husband lets you wear nail polish, you can wear nail polish. So I just wanted to get married, because all the good things happen
to unlock all that opportunity
when you get married. Two years, and I actually struggled with infertility. This is embarrassing, but I only noticed that I had issues after I was trying to have a baby. But those issues existed for a very long time before. So I started my fertility journey early. And after I had my child, I continued my fertility journey. And I wasn't successful. And then I stopped altogether because I didn't want to bring in more children into the world with my husband.
Do you look back at that with disappointment, or do you look back at that and feel like it was meant to be given where you are today?
It was meant to be, of course. And if my child is listening, they're not going to like that I say that, because they question, then why did they get cancer? But I do believe, and you're a doctor, and I understand there's a psychiatric piece to this, but I think there are pieces to this that are beyond understanding.
Oh, for sure. I mean, medicine is just trying to understand and make some sort of logical reasoning to how the world works. There's so much we don't know, right? And so much we can't understand. So I appreciate that very much, especially in the world of psychiatry and mental health. it is probably one of the least understood specialties in medicine, where we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. So that resonates a lot with how challenging it is to navigate the world of mental health with a patient, given how little we understand, and how complex the brain really is. So you're in this marriage, you have your child, you try to have more children. That's challenging for you. What happens next?
I'm finally at the point in my life where I no longer judge myself for how I behaved at that time. And I'm very grateful to my therapist for stopping me when I say I should have done this or I should have done that, and says, how could you have done that? What tools do you have? So reframing that makes me less judgmental of myself. But I was in my young 20s. I was very dependent on the community. I not only had a professional comedic and entertainment career, but I was also a very successful high school teacher in three very popular high schools. I taught in Beis Yaakov Durav Meir, 11th grade select English, bylines, journalism. I taught in Masoras Beis Yaakov, Shakespeare.
Oh, wow. I taught AP Bio.
Hey, we wouldn't get along. And I taught in Lev Beis Yaakov as well. And then I taught earlier on in other very frum schools. Shout out to Benos Beis Yaakov. They don't want these shout outs. Me and my pants. But I was a teacher for 13 years in the community. Many of my students went on to get married and have their own children. So my identity very much lied within the community, in addition to the entertainment. Plus, my child was in a very religious school, Beis Yaakov, 18th Avenue. I was very affiliated with the very religious community. My parents were very affiliated in the Haimish community. My only skills and non-transferable knowledge lay in the community. Now, as an adult, I see all those things as blessings. I'm so glad I was, educated the way that I was, because thank God I have the Gemara cup, and I have the Hasidic, and I have the positivity and the resilience of the Holocaust survivor grandparents. All four, by the way. Thank you, Liz Glazer. She says 4 out of 4 is a perfect score. So, at the end of the day, all of that is the reason I'm here. So I do believe there's a reason for everything.
When did it start feeling all wrong?
20s. I'm heavily sinking in the community, and it's all I know, and it's my livelihood. My marriage is hard. It doesn't feel the way a partnership should. I had a little voice inside of me. I didn't have much to compare it to. At our Hasidic weddings, the Batchen, which is the guy that makes all the jokes, he jokes about how miserable couples are together and how annoying the mother-in-law is, So we grew up thinking that that's what it's supposed to be. And if you're not fighting, it's not good, So it took me a long time to understand what wasn't good. I'm not going to lie. It was really ugly. I did a lot of things I'm not proud of. And also I was in my young 20s. I began to attend support groups, and this is after lots and lots of discovery and trying and experimenting and doing all the normal things that someone in their 20s should do. But in our communities, we're very heavily judged for going to a bar after work, which in normal culture is very normal to get a drink after work with your colleagues. But in our culture, who goes to a bar? It's goyish, that's for Gentiles. And I understand it now, because maybe I'm older, but also I don't want to be in a bar. I want to connect with my people on a couch.
Like this.
Yeah. Or in my pool in my backyard. You know what I mean? Or like on a run. Or at a retreat. Or at a dance circle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or an over slice of pizza. But I don't want to go to a bar either. So I get it. But things that are normal in certain cultures are very not normal in our culture. In our culture, it's not normal to be physical before marriage. It's only acceptable to save yourself for marriage. And in super religious cultures, there's not even any interaction with the opposite gender. So there were Shabbosim, weekends that I grew up, that my brothers left the house so my friends can be there. And at Purim, at other events where there was, I left and hung out with my friends because there were boys there. And that was normal for us. In a way, I'm grateful. Well, first of all, flash forward, I like the ladies, but also I'm grateful because I didn't have pressure. I didn't have boy pressure. I didn't have girl pressure either, because I didn't have any understanding of either, because why should a 10-year-old?
Right.
But I grew up just thinking that everything good will happen when I get married. I didn't come out on my own terms. I went to a psychotherapist after many years of trying to go for support. And he helped me realize that I was living a double life. Like I needed someone to help me realize that it's not normal to be teaching high schoolers all day and wear a sheitel and have a skirt and then take my skirt off and put on jeans and go out with my friends to a lesbian bar and try to talk to a girl. And
were you married at this point?
Married.
Wow.
I was
you
married.
would take the sheitel off and go live your...
I got tattoos. My principal called me in. I was a high school teacher, and said that a mom had seen me at the gym with a tattoo. And they were very kind to me. They gave me an option to stay and just continue and just keep my life to myself. And I stayed.
Did your husband know at the time?
And my husband knew. And my husband also gave me the option to stay. And I stayed. And then a double life became suffocating. And it festered inside of me. And I became so anxious, so depressed. And I tried to look for support. I got support. I started to understand myself. And the problem that we face in our community is that we are told that it's selfish of us to put our own needs before our children. And I know that many people will be listening and say, that's not true. And you're right. It's not true for you. But it was true for me. Because I grew up watching my mother put her society and community before herself too. And her mother before her, and her mother before her. And it's the generational trauma that we carried after the Holocaust, and the guilt that I felt for wanting to experience true love or music, or know what it feels like to make a joke in front of men, or know what it feels like to want to wear pants, or know what it feels like to kiss someone and feel passion. Or know what it feels like to embrace a good cry and to be grateful for it.
How real does it feel now?
It feels amazing. It feels amazing.
Does it feel safe?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. It feels yummy. It feels so good. And also in our community, it's very scary. Tears are very scary. As you know, I am also a businesswoman. This is going to be surprising to many, but I'm the CEO of a company called the Corporate Minute, and we upscale businesses and build them from scratch. And I've been, my history, I've been at real corporate home care facilities and agencies, and I did a lot of mergers and acquisitions. For mental health facilities, we did actually a big ketamine clinic upscale. I had 10 NPs. It was also a part of my career was making choices that, that doesn't align with me anymore. I can move on. Long story short, so in the professional world, I'm working now with a team that has a certain culture. And part of the culture is everything's fine, everything's perfect, there's never any problems. So the other day we had a meeting and nobody even says, "How are you?" in the meeting. And I say, "How are we doing?" It's a midday check-in. And everyone's like, I'm fine. And I say, "I'm not that fine today. Today we had a patient who struggled. And it made me really sad that we couldn't provide the service that we needed for this patient." Well, it was because this reason, and clinical director pops up with, "It's this reason," and somebody else says, "It was because of intake, it's always," and I said, "You guys are not hearing me. I'm not asking for solutions. I'm the boss. I'm not telling you it's anyone's fault. I'm simply saying I went into this business because I care about patients. Yeah. And today wasn't a good day for me because someone at home, an elderly person, was stuck without the help they deserve. And that makes me sad for today. It's okay. That's why I'm in this field. The day it stops making you sad is the day you don't belong in the business anymore." Being sad is not a scary feeling to me because I'm also very happy sometimes. And I'm also really confident sometimes, and in this moment, I'm sad, but all this that I'm sharing isn't scary. I was excited to meet with you.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. So I want to go back to it seems like there's this theme of liberation that you've had. I'm not to mirror the Holocaust stuff, but personally, you've been liberated to express yourself, to do all these things, and certainly coming out to be finally be authentic must have been a real pivotal moment. But I'm curious, what was that day like for you, and what was that conversation like?
I just came out of the elevator teaching an 11th grade class. We had a teachers meeting of a bunch of teachers, and we were deciding on the fate of an 11th grade student who they were thinking of expelling because her hair was long and they had told her many times to cut it and it wasn't modest according to their standards. And I just was nauseous. I was sick to my stomach. I was disgusted. Like, here we are giving two rats tochuses about the length of someone's hair, and I'm in the position where I have to decide the fate of this girl. I was nauseous. I got up. I walked towards the elevator. And I called my husband. I said, I can't do this anymore. This is crazy. I'm living a crazy life. I have non-Jewish friends who have no idea I'm a mother. I have my close from religious friends that have no idea that I'm like torn up inside. This is crazy. I'm losing my mind. I flip open my phone after I hang up with him, and I start seeing messages flying in. Are you okay? What's going on? What's going on? No idea what anybody's talking about. I look on Facebook. They tag me on Facebook. And there was a picture of me in a lesbian bar. And I'm wearing a sleeveless tank. And my tattoo is out. And I'm wearing my hair. And there's a caption. And it says, congratulations, Leah Forster, the latest OTD lesbian. Welcome to the community. Now, I am famous in my community. I'm selling out shows. I am teaching in a prominent high school. My child is in regular, Jewish school. But now that I look back in retrospect, my child was actually in a day school, a Hebrew day school. Because with my therapist, we had slowly prepared for this moment where he told me, Leah, there are Jewish schools that if, God forbid, you ever were outed, it would be okay. I said, you're lying. There's no such thing. And there was such a thing. Lo and behold, there were Jewish schools where it's okay. And I enrolled my child in such a school. And my parents were very unhappy about it. Very. On Pesach, when every child gets offered a gift and an afikomen, my mom, rest her soul, and I understand why she did it. She said, we'll pay for your child's tuition. And I was so grateful because I was a single mom at that point. And the tuition was a fortune. And she said, only on condition that you send to a certain school. And it doesn't have to be the most religious school. And then she listed Prospect Park, BYA. Those, by the way, are very religious schools. But according to my mother, those were not as
She was
religious.
being flexible and willing to negotiate.
Within her boundaries. So it was devastating because it was conditional. And you know what? My child probably feels that I'm conditional as well. And I'm older. I understand more. My mother always said, one day you'll understand. And here I am understanding. So back to that day. As it turned out, I was outed and I went viral. I was already viral in my community. But now it was, did you hear Mrs. Forster? Is this, that? So needless to say, I got terminated from my job. Baruch Hashem, the other two, I had already matriculated out of. So it was just one teaching position. But slowly, I started doing some marketing on the side for a little home care program called CDPAP, which stands for Consumer Directed Personal Assistant Program. So I'm a newly divorced woman. I was outed on social media.
Do you consider that your moment of coming out?
No, because my real life, my frum friends, my parents, my religious community doesn't really focus on social media. Mm-hmm. So they weren't clicking and clacking. So they heard yentas. And so one person forwarded it. But in our community, people protect one another. So it's don't tell Tati about this. Mm-hmm. Or you don't want to tell Tanta whatever about that. You don't want to cause her agmas nefesh, which means you don't want to hurt and pain her soul. And there's beauty to that, to protecting them. the ugly part is that they're not properly equipped for when it does get incredibly painful. Hence, coping mechanisms. Ta-da! I'm a comedian. It's my number one coping mechanism. So I'm a young divorcee, but I still remain closeted. Because why would I tell anyone? I know how they feel about us. And most importantly, I knew how I felt about myself, which was not that great. I felt like I was going to burn in hell. I was terrified to ever drink or get high or even have sex because I was afraid that I would go to hell. And what would happen if I would be loose? There's such beauty in that. And it's also really scary because when you're so sheltered and then you are exposed to the slightest fumes, it's intoxicating. Yeah. So actually, I was proactive too, and I worked on this in therapy for a very long time. When that Facebook post came out, I had already taken the steps to remove myself from the public eye. I had already sold my rights to my DVDs and music. I had already done a huge farewell show for 1,800 people where I said goodbye. And people were like, why would she do that? She's at the height of her career. But I knew that I would need to make changes and I would lose things. So, like with every atomic habit, I did things slowly and I didn't rip off the Band-Aid. I did it at a level that was comfortable for me. It wasn't comfortable for everybody around me. And my child suffered tremendously. And my husband suffered tremendously. And my friends suffered tremendously. And my siblings. Could you imagine not knowing anything about your own sister's life? And the little bits they did know were lies. Right.
Almost as though they didn't really know who you were.
Although, I didn't know who they were either. So. Are
you in touch with your siblings or your husband?
My husband, of course, ex-husband, because we have a child together. And my child just went through 12 rounds of chemotherapy. So I definitely was in touch with the father of my child. And we are both team sin. Chaya Bas Altalea. We have PET scans next week.
Oh, we wish her a speedy recovery.
And we are waiting for great news.
Amen. B'ezrat Hashem, you'll be able to celebrate her recovery together, and she'll come through this. How about your sibling?
I sent my brother a text a couple of weeks ago because, as I mentioned, I run a large corporation. And we are not in the exact same field, but our fields collide, financially for sure, structurally too. It's the same industries. And I sent him a text and I said, hey, I heard really amazing things from you. And the beautiful part about it was there was no attachment to an outcome. It was really nice to just be able to wish him well. And he said, thank you. And it's really beautiful to be here, to have no attachment to the outcomes. Because then you actually get to live completely in the present And I find it so rare these days. I was at an event the other day, enjoying myself. I was dancing. And some guy came next to me and took out his cell phone and was like, "Hey, Leah Forster, hey." And I felt so like sad that we couldn't have that moment without a camera on our face, because it would have been so fun. We were having fun. So I understand that I'm in the public eye, and that comes with doing things like this. So I chose you because I'm doing what I'm doing mindfully.
And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the reference to mindful care. So you think, coming out is a process for many people, and then maybe even like a stepwise function in terms of you make progress and then you hold it, and there's a leap to another level of progress and you hold it, and it takes a lot of time to really reach.
This is so not. Am I allowed to do that?
Sure. Make yourself comfortable. So
Thank
I think
you. I'm sorry, everybody. I just I'm sitting, and I'm like, I gotta.
And you had to travel
rearrange.
all the way here. No worries.
Yes,
no
yes.
Worries.
It took an hour to get here.
Appreciate that. So as people transition through coming out, there are times where, from my experience, they talk about kind of surrendering and reaching a level of closure that coming out is behind them. That they've let's say, I can give you an example. They've shared it with close friends, and then they shared it with their siblings, and ultimately they told their parents, and then they found a same-sex partner, and then there's this kind of like new door that opens of like this painful process is over. Yeah, it's like a really like a eureka moment. Have you had that already?
I think I've had that a million times. I think I've had a million of those moments. And it's not about sexuality. It's not about religion. It's not about politics. It's just about moments of realizing cool things. Moments where you're like, oh, another piece of the puzzle, right? And I must say that I kind of wish it wasn't such a big deal.
Right.
Like, yes, it's important to me. To me. Same thing with my religion. It's important to me. Same thing regarding my political views. It matters to me. And today, it's become this thing where we gotta like be performative or take sides or make a stand or have this color square or do that thing or say this response. And if you don't, you'll be canceled. Like, I just want to live, girl. I don't want to be a part of all of that. Let me be. So I understand that I have a responsibility, but I believe my responsibility is to let me be. You let you be, you let me be, and we all be. Thank you, Mel Robbins.
Almost like a live and let live.
Yeah, and not in a sense that it's all about me or all about you and we can't. We need each other, absolutely. But part of needing each other is recognizing that there's so many different flavors, and who really cares? We need you, we need you, we need you, and we need you. Like, and people gotta just live and let live. Now, again, I'm not the one to preach because I'm also a comedian and I call things out like I see them. But that's okay. I'm not for everyone either. I can live that life. That works for me just fine. So that's where I'm at on that journey. I didn't have any particular moment. I had multiple moments. I feel that way about loving somebody publicly. I was in a very public relationship, and it was my first, it wasn't my first lesbian relationship. I had a closeted relationship for a long time too. With a girl that also had a husband and children. And that also contributed to the double life that I had, because I never felt like I can be completely genuine. So more lies, more lies, more lies. How do you differentiate between one lie and another? Which brings me to sexual trauma, physical trauma, incest in our community, drug addiction in our community. And you may say, why am I talking about our community? And that's exactly why I'm talking about our community. This podcast, well, it's for everyone. I hope everyone can tune in and be mindful. But this piece of this podcast isn't for people to sensationalize and make movies about. This is for people like me. This is for people that know people like me. All this that exists needs to be discussed. It doesn't mean it needs to be discussed with a camera. That's my choice. Thank you. But it needs to be discussed. And it is not discussed. Now, have things changed tremendously? Absolutely. Things have changed tremendously. There are wonderful organizations doing wonderful things and spreading awareness about sexual abuse and physical abuse. But there are many things that are not talked about. There are young children that have no idea that they have passports, 18 years old, and their parents hide it from them. There are young couples that husbands won't give them any money and will traumatize them financially and make them so dependent and so terrified to leave. There are young girls out there that are hiding from their husbands and not going to the mikvah. There are men out there that are attracted to other men, Hasidic, heimische men, and are so terrified. And you know what life looks like for them? Wearing a payas and wearing a beard? And what trauma they experience in their bodies because they can't even look at themselves in the mirror? And this isn't to point fingers. It is just to let you know that it exists. And I'm telling you it exists because I myself don't remember what it was like to give birth. I struggle to remember what it was like to push my own child out of me because I didn't want to remember, because everything from here down didn't exist to me. And for those of you that are out there and say, well, that's unique to you, I wish you were right, but you are not right, my friend. I've been in the support groups with these people. I have gotten surgery on my body. I have shared that I've gotten surgery on my body. But I can say that I am grateful that I've done years of mindful work so that I can be ready for what my new post-surgery body would feel like to me. Because I spent 6 months dancing with her. And I spent 6 months praying with her and eating with her and looking at the fashion that I would wear when I become her. So that when she arrived, I was her. And we were one. And that was because I was mindful. And so in our community, there are a lot of sexy trends right now. People are out there talking about ayahuasca and this diagnosis. And everyone out there is neurodivergent. And everyone out there is now suffering from PTSD. Let me tell you, my friends, we are all hurting. We are all suffering. And some of us are suffering with anxiety, and some of us are suffering with sexual trauma, and some of us are suffering with addiction, And at the end of the day, mindfulness is the answer.
What you're saying is incredibly powerful, and I appreciate you sharing it. In your book, which I recommend everyone read, you talk about the trauma you experienced, and you've done a lot of healing work to navigate it. And there's a famous book, The Body Keeps the Score, that talks about no matter how much you try to process trauma, your brain and your body hold on to it for a very long time. And then if you think about, you can't help as a psychiatrist to think of brain function and your amygdala controlling your fear response to a situation, and then your hippocampus controlling your memory, your prefrontal cortex kind of being your regulatory executive function part of your brain. All these components are trying to work together to understand a traumatic experience and make sense of it. And it can't always, and can't do it successfully. And that's where it continues to live with you, where you develop, like you said, PTSD. So you have this hypervigilance, meaning you're always responding to stimuli, even if it's non-threatening, or you have flashbacks or nightmares, right? All those are very real. How do you feel the traumatic experiences you've experienced and you've spent years in therapy processing have shaped you?
I mean, it goes back to what we said before. Everything happens for a reason. In my line of work, I look at problems in businesses, or I look at visionaries, and I help them achieve their dreams, their goals, make their money, build better systems. And what I've come to realize is that what I do most of the day is therapy. I'm ashamed to admit this, because I have this reputation of being this operational genius and this major business developer, but at the end of the day, what I do is therapy. I came into this big operation and they gave me this fancy office. And I said, no, thank you. Where do the people at the bottom sit? Put me in the cubicles. And I made friends. And I'm emotional when I say this, because it helps me understand the company so much better. As I promoted myself, or currently promoting myself, I can understand that when a supervisor says this isn't being done, I actually know it is being done, right? And there's something in between that's not working. And that requires therapy. I need to ask questions. I need to understand the temperature of the structure. And I believe I could not do that if I wouldn't have experienced each and everything myself. Because when I was fired from my job and when all my opportunities went out the window, all I had was this one opportunity at one home care agency. And this guy named Yoel, who I thought was Hasidic, because Yo-Yo, everyone in our community is Yo-Yo. I was so traumatized that it's going to be some Hasidic guy who's going to look at me and say, oh, it's her? Ew, she's a scandal, get her out of here. So I went in a shaitel and I went in a skirt to the interview. And after 5 minutes, he said, we want you. I know talent when I see it. How much do you make teaching? We'll match it. It was like Hashem sent me a kiss. I just want to clarify, it was $40,000.
I don't know if Yoel now is going to text me and be like, you wanted that advertised.
He is a tzaddik, okay? A pure angel from Hashem, and I'm so grateful for him every day. And the only reason I'm able to build companies and deal with, the levels and the executives that I deal with is because of someone like him. And I bless everyone to have a leader like him. So I walked into him knowing nothing, and that guy built me. And I look back now and I think, what did he do for me? Oh, He asked me hundreds of questions, and most of them were personal. But I got my get because of his encouragement. I started keeping Shabbos because of his encouragement. And he never admonished me. So he treated me like a human being. And I think ultimately that's what people pay money for, to go to therapy, because people in their real life are not treating them like human beings. So as you post this, you may be like, we're going to go out of business. But unfortunately, there are still hundreds of millions of people that have no idea what it's like to be mindful. And for those people, they will need to find people like you and companies like you to give them the tools to lead successful lives.
Sure, but what it sounds like you got from Yoel was validation, and that's priceless. And that's the connection you also get a lot of times in therapy, to hear that what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, your reality is in fact reality. And a lot of times after trauma, your reality feels distorted. So to re-anchor yourself, and it feels like you were able to leverage Yoel to do that, is huge and really meaningful. And it also sounds like you've developed a very impressive level of empathy because of your experience. So you're able to see people, and you have this EQ that somebody who grew up with a very picture perfect life, they could fake it, but it would never be as authentic as somebody who's been there and has experienced it. The connection is just very different. So I think your ability to have compassion comes from a very deep place, because if it hits a chord within you, you'll tap into that chord and that feeling and pull the emotional response from there to send the message to the person that I hear you and I'm present and I'm with you. Since we're getting so from.
By the way, guys, you don't know this, but that's a compliment. That was a compliment. Yeah. I know it may be hard to recognize because it's like in a salad.
Yeah. There's a compliment in there.
A psychiatric terminology, but Lamaisa, that was a compliment.
Well,
Thank you.
And there's the saying hineni, that I think your experience, whether you say it or not, is what you really are saying every time somebody connects with you. That hineni, I'm here, and I'm present, and I'm with you, and that's not something anyone can do and do well. So that's something you should cherish. I feel like I want to talk to you. Another compliment, yeah. I think I want to discuss so much more with you, but we're running out of time. I do want you to share with our listeners, where are you today in life? What does your life look like today? Who are you married to? Where is your child? Like, what is the ending to, or at least what is the last chapter of this book?
First of all, I'm not married. So let's start there.
Your partner, excuse me.
Thank you. We have to come up with a better word than partner. We must. Yeah, well, partner sounds so business-like, and you know,
I actually don't know when people tell me partner
like
if they're married.
Right, exactly. And I'm not super like traditional, so like my lover.
Right.
And
then you don't know if a girlfriend's a fiance. Where are they?
Exactly. So my person. Okay. Just my person.
So bring us up to speed on the person.
Okay. My person I'll leave out of this, but I have a person. I have a great person.
And she's amazing.
You know my person.
How long have you been with her?
It's been years, and it's been beautiful. And, you know, obviously I still very much believe in Ayin Hara. For those of you that don't know what that means, you know, that just means there's hidden beauty is blessing. And there's a difference between private and secret. So it's not a secret that I'm with someone I adore. And it's also so very deliciously private.
Well, I love that for you. And I think I hope your journey continues to grow richer and amazing, and you continue doing great work both professionally and in your comedy.
Thank you. And I also just want to clarify that my book called Club MILF is a fiction, because you mentioned earlier that I spoke about some of my things, and that has come up. It's not just you, but it has come up. My book is a complete fiction. It is called Club MILF. It stands for Mothers Interested in Launching Financial Freedom, 2 Fs. And it is a wonderful, fantastical story that is made up totally from my imagination. And of course, I took pieces from people that I know, but it is about a woman named Leah. And she does attend a Poga class in Brooklyn, which stands for Pole and Yoga. I do pole. I love it. Private. And she discovers the corporate world, and she discovers these incredible characters that would change her life. I made the main character of the company, Club MILF, called Meryl. I'm dreaming that Meryl Streep will play that character. Meryl, if you're listening, name your price. Seriously. So long story short, it's a fiction, and it does have pieces of my personal experiences in there, as many great artists do. So I hope you pick up a copy. It's in Barnes & Nobles. It's in Amazon.
Love that. Well, I appreciate your time. I'm so glad you were here, and I thank you for being forthcoming and sharing your story with us.
Wait, we're not done. I asked if there are, you gave me 2 compliments, and trust me, I'm a woman, so I counted. It was 2. Overall, what is your professional recommendation?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a very short period of time to get to know you at like such
disclaimer
at such an intimate level. But I would say it's clear you've done a lot of work, and there's a lot of growth, and you've processed a ton, which is not easy given everything you've experienced. And what we've talked about here is just the tip of the iceberg, especially the emotional impact of what you've experienced. I would say that I'd be curious to understand, kind of forward thinking, what you ultimately are hoping to learn about yourself. I think there's so much more to explore that you don't even know. Is what I'm picking up on. That but it's fascinating, and that's probably where I would spend time.
By the way, you're very good at your job, because my current therapist, who I love, told me the exact same thing. I need to focus more on myself and my future and my things. And I'm like, what you talking about? But I totally get you.
All right. So then, I'm going to end on that high note. I do thank you guys for joining us today. Really a privilege and an honor to have Leah Forster with us. Such a talented individual with an incredible story of strength and conviction, and inspiration to many of us. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Thank you for listening. Please follow us or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Please follow us at Mindful Care and at TikTok Psychiatrist for more, and don't forget to rate and review.